Okay, we switch to our strategists now, our Tuesday group. We have the master of all things majority, Jeff Norquay, acting for the Conservatives. El Presidento of the New Democrats is Brian Topp in Toronto, and the First Lady of the Liberals, Amanda Alvaro, in Toronto as well. Welcome to you all.
Good to be here.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jeff first, because we've heard from a Liberal, we've heard from a New Democrat on this RCMP investigation. You're the defense. Defend yourself.
Well, the first thing, just a small correction. As I read the article this afternoon, I did not see the word investigation. I think a complaint was made by, as we all know, Marlene as a defeated Liberal candidate. Nice political stunt on her part. But there's no capital I investigation here. I think the RCMP are doing what they should do in a situation like this. Which is follow up on a complaint. But look, we've all been through the Auditor General's report. It was pretty clear. There was some administrative laxity that I think everybody acknowledges here, but every penny has been accounted for and every project was completed as designed. So, yes, there's room for improvement, but an RCMP investigation, I don't think so.
Okay, Brian Topp, is there criminal fire in all this legal smoke, do you think?
Well, I think as any Liberal would tell you, Don, an RCMP investigation does not mean there's been a crime. But I think it once again highlights that I think probably the government is likely to conclude that all the gazebos and the walkways and whatever the heck else was built for this money probably wasn't worth it. And there were clearly from the auditor report some serious irregularities with this funding. I think it remains to be seen whether we know all the facts, whether all the pennies have really been accounted for. It'll be interesting to see what the horse people come up with, and I think it just underlines that this isn't the way to run the railroad, that this isn't the kind of good management that taxpayers should have the right to expect from the government.
Amanda, do you think there's something here that the RCMP really should be chasing?
Well, I can respect everything that Jeff said, particularly around every penny being accounted for, and they may have to, publicly start dishing out where those dollars were spent. Gazebos and beautification projects is not where Canadians want to see their tax dollars spent, particularly around something as important as the G8 summit, and particularly under something under the guise of a border infrastructure project, when we all know that Muskoka is literally miles away from any U.S. border. So it sounds to me like there's going to be some explaining to do.
Okay, I want to switch gears because there's a lot happening on Parliament Hill as it winds down. I'm just curious, Jeff, Stephen Harper seems to be picking on unions. Now, I know back-to-work legislation can pick on management just as easily, but I'm wondering if, and it seems to be popular, the actions he's taking, and the polls I've been seeing, or there's one poll anyway that shows that. Is he trying to pick a fight with organized labor, in your view?
Not at all. I think what he's trying to do is ensure that there is a third party at the table. And that third party is Canadian consumers, Canadian citizens, and the Canadian economy, for that matter. We all get the dynamic here, labor and management. The government completely believes in the right of both sides to pursue collective agreements to their mutual benefit, as they should. But I think the government is also saying that the government, will have a say at the table on behalf of those consumers. The other thing I think that the government is saying here is it's really important that the process be respected and the process continue to be engaged. And that went off the rails on the 3rd of June when the rotating strike started.
Okay, Amanda, is there a possible price that opposition parties will pay for siding with the unions in this showdown, which doesn't seem terribly popular?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the real ideological differences of both the governing party and the opposition party rearing its ugly head in this debate. And I think we're going to see the consequences of that. We'll have labor relations issues coming down the line if we force back to work legislation. At the same time, we see the NDP opposition talking about going to all lengths to make sure that back to work legislation doesn't take place. And those ideological differences are going to impede us from moving forward, whether it's in this instance or whether it's in other instances that'll face Parliament in the future.
Okay, Brian, over to you.
Well, I think that was an attempt to have your cake and eat it too, Don. I mean, the bottom line is there's a bill before the House and you have to decide where you stand on it. And the situation that we have here is is two parties, as Jeff says, doing what they have the right to do under the law, which is to try to negotiate a contract and to pressure each other to do it, leading to a lockout, let's be clear, leading almost immediately to back-to-work legislation from the government that apparently seeks to impose a settlement that is worse than the employer's final offer. And so it's an inappropriate intervention into a collective bargaining round. The government isn't entering to this as a neutral third party. It's taking sides in the dispute and actually taking a harder line than the employer did. That's quite inappropriate. That's not how the government steps in to settle a dispute, and that's why the bill is going to be resisted in the House, as it should be.
It does seem a little odd, Jeff, that they lowballed the offer that was already on the table.
Not at all. I think there is a very direct message there that it would be a really good idea for both sides to get back to the table, or they might not like the outcome. That's all that's being said here.
Like the outcome of
Well,
that.
yeah,
Employer will like
but,
the outcome.
works both ways.
Okay, I want to switch gears because time is running short. The Senate reform bill. Amanda, is there anything that can make the Senate look good that could be reformed in this legislation?
This is just another slap of paint on an issue that seems to never go away. And I think it's a little bit more of the status quo while trying to appear like you're doing something different. We have those appointments that were made after 2008 having to adhere to the time limitations, not taking into account all of the senators who were appointed before that. And then we have this, thinly veiled democratic rhetoric that's being put over everything. And really what it comes down to is, how are you going to build consensus with the first ministers on the issue of Senate reform versus abolishment in order to get the kind of democratic approach that you're looking for? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to make reform, as it stands, work not only for Senate, but also for Canadians.
Okay, Brian, you just want to bulldoze the place, right?
Well, I think it's true. I think Amanda is very right that this is a test of whether the government can do important things like institutional reform effectively, or whether, in fact, it turns out they don't know how to play in this game. The government is asserting that it's capable of reforming the Senate the way it is doing, and that appears not to be true. I think there's a good chance that what the government is trying to do here is unconstitutional. And so really the bottom line is that you probably this matter should get referred to the courts, and if we're going to learn that you have to do a constitutional amendment anyway, then absolutely the right thing to do is to abolish the place. It can't be fixed. Provincial legislatures all across the country got rid of their second chambers long ago and still function democratically. The Senate should be abolished. And if we have to amend the Constitution anyway, and if you want to invest in this issue at all, then do the right thing and get rid of the chamber.
Okay, well, Amanda, Brian, and Jeff, thanks for your thoughts. And if we don't talk again soon, have a good summer.
Thank you, you too.